the one and only Hunter Dawkins, who is not only a publisher but a SuperTalk opinion contributor. Hunter, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Paul. It's always an honor and a privilege. Thank you very much. I'm glad you guys are doing well. Got out of the storm this morning. I'm currently going through it, going up to Hattiesburg to pick up the paper today. But
I can hear it.
Good,
yeah.
Good to hear from you. Yes, sir.
You're driving right now?
Oh, yeah. Just making my early morning transmission to Hattiesburg. Yes, sir. Every Friday morning.
I know it's a little bit. It's a step up from a paper boy, but I've done that in my life too, and that's the early responsibilities of the old days. I mean, if you didn't have a paper route when you were my age, you just weren't raised right.
Exactly. My parents learned from me. I did a little bit of throwing out the paper, at least for the Sun Herald when I was a younger generation. But that was the kind of idea I was raised in. So
I'll give you an idea, since you're a paper guy, how long ago that was. We were up in the Mississippi Delta, grew up in Shaw. And the paper that wanted to find somebody the new paper, of course, the commercial appeal was in that area, Jackson Clarion Ledger. But there was a new paper that started, and that's, I had no idea what it was, but it was the Jackson State Times.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, the Jackson State Times, and I think I did that for about 2 years before it kind of went away. So there you go. That's not the reason you're on with us. First of all, a great article I read, and I can relate to you, Hunter. Is simply undergoing, the cancer diagnosis a couple of years ago and fighting through that, and looking at some of the cost of what is happening in this country, and it's just mind-boggling. But your thoughts on it, and again, a great piece for people who haven't read that. Go to the opinion section of the SuperTalk website and read it. But your thoughts?
Well, Mr. Gallo, it's obviously something that we have to take hold of. We have to figure out as Americans how we can make this country being American, not necessarily being a capitalistic society that's dependent on, needs. We as a state of Mississippi, as I talked to JT about this, I said we are a state of life, from the administration of Tate Reeves and all the rest. We are profoundly for people living and people moving along. Well, that being said, why are we not supporting our living and the cost of drugs, the cost of health care? What's the problem? How do we make this work? What is the change we can do to make it affordable for everybody? Not getting into a socialism state, but to get into something to where we can make it, make the costs reduce, where we can make something for people to go out and buy groceries, go out and buy needs for their families, and yet still give them the best care.
Hunter, I mean, it sounds good.
Yes, sir.
It sounds good, but I'm sorry, I'm getting a message in the ears here. It sounds good, but when you start looking at it, you ask some of the legislators, it's a situation where they may tell you flat out it's bigger than them as far as the state legislature is concerned. And I'm sometimes wonder if it's bigger than Congress, too, because you've got so much behind. It doesn't have to be this way. You shouldn't, when you can buy the same pill at a veterinarian for a third or maybe even a fifth of that cost, then you know something's wrong. When you can buy the same pill in Canada or Mexico, and I mean the same thing, then you know something is wrong. So it's the process that's wrong. It's not capitalism. It's the abuse of capitalism. Wouldn't you agree?
Of course, absolutely, Paul. And, the funny thing about this is when there was a need for a vaccine, we sped that up so quick and things happen so quick, but yet we can't find, drugs to cure cancer or to find a vaccine for HIV or something that would help our greater day society, we're not speeding up. Doesn't that raise some questions?
Yes, look, we've had a lot of chances. You're in the news business too. We've had a lot of chance to sit down and reevaluate where we were, where we are now, and how we came through this pandemic situation. I've arrived at my own opinion. I might happen to have a microphone, so I'm a little luckier than others. But my opinion is that there were so many things behind this that the pandemic was exacerbated by politics 1,000,000 times more than it should have been. If there were two ways to do it, the political way, which meant a lot of people who were making a hell of a lot of money, and some of them were in Congress, understood and even 100%. Said this early on that, look, we can't have ivermectin. And then there were other people who were saying, look, we got the drug out here. You don't need to fast-track anything. Let's use the ivermectin. It will work. And, man, there was a political power play against them. If you said that, you were shunned. So,
well, and 100% agreed, Paul. And the fact that you have these big pharmaceutical companies,
yes,
for instance, Pfizer, who are making billions of dollars, and yet they can also, not only with the vaccine, but they can start pushing in some other treatments and things like that for a certain amount of costs. And where's the fairness of this? Where is the idea of treating Americans like Americans? As I said in the article, we were founded on a country of ideas, not a country of, well, if you have this much, then you'll get this treatment versus having this much. That itself is a socialistic way to look at things, and I'm definitely against that philosophy, as I'm sure you are too.
Well, and I think you can kind of gauge the number of people who are voting, even in our last election, which is pathetic and it's embarrassing. The farther you set back in the crowd, the less your voice will be heard. And I think that's what's happening. So very, very few people are heard now. It's the money in Congress and everything else. Look, I've had a problem with this for a long time. When you are spending literally, and they spend literally hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising prescription drugs, that I would think very few people in this country go to their doctor and say, look, I've seen this drug. This is the drug you ought to prescribe for me. Now, I understand some might say, what about this drug or that drug? But is it worth it when you're spending more on advertising as a write-off than you are on research? And we've seen that year after year, that they spend actually more on advertising than they do on research.
Paul, I'm sure you remember these days. I don't necessarily quite remember these days, but, my grandfather was a pharmacist of an independent pharmacy in Dallas. And my mother used to tell me so many people would go to him for treatments of, well, if you do this, if you do that, instead of going to their doctors, because back in the day, obviously it was pretty hard to get doctor's appointments. And, of course, not only in that, but in Western European countries, they go to these pharmacists called, I guess they call them chemists or so. Maybe that's the term they're using. But that being said, I mean, you're essentially taking the doctors and the pharmacists, even though there's hardly no independent pharmacies anymore, but you're taking these individuals out of healthcare treatment, and you're just putting it on drugs.
Well, and you also, every time there's a merger between major drugstores and that happens, you're giving them more power, whoever winds up the last kid on the block, and they get more and more power and more of a voice in American politics. Well, I come back a couple of other questions. Can you hang on for a second?
Absolutely, sir.
Hunter Dawkins, be careful out there, though. I know you're driving, so take it easy. Trent Lott's coming on 8:05. Dixon Williams, 8:37. It is a Friday. The weekend is ahead. Hunter Dawkins, and let's finish up the conversation with him. Is it still? It sounds like a storm in the background.
Yes, sir. There's some lightning coming down, but I'm on the interstate. I'm on 59, so I'm getting close.
Man, be careful. We'll let you go. I want your final thoughts on this one, though, because what do you think the solution is, though? Because nobody can come up with an actual solution on this.
Well, to be honest with you, Paul, I've had a little while to think about this, and personally, I think that you need to have a commission set up by Congress, somebody that is included with from the healthcare, maybe a doctor, a nurse, somebody from a pharmaceutical company, somebody from an insurance company. This commission needs to be able to set recommendations like so many municipalities and the state legislatures set up to be able to make recommendations. Congress, I'm not really even sure that they have this, and if they do, it's definitely not effective. And there needs to be some oversight, some evaluation of what's going on to help stop these overburdening pharmaceutical prices.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, too, is I'm wondering with people like Mark Cuban, and there are a couple of other people out there, too, are trying to do something with the power base that they have. Mark Cuban has started an alternative drug supply via Internet, and I'm hoping that catches on, and I know he's been very successful with it. Have you heard about that one?
I have not, but I definitely do watch Shark Tank a little bit here and there, and they obviously, are into looking into those type of things.
Yeah, it's needed tremendously. Hunter, thank you, sir. We'll look forward to your next article on the opinion page of SuperTalk.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. It's always an honor and a privilege. I hope you guys are doing well up there.
We are doing well. We're past it. You're in it, so do be careful for yourself as you continue your